Rwanda everywhere he goes. And as of that, Rwanda is oversubscribed. So coming down to the Gambia here, we are a country with a lot of comparative advantages. You heard the previous speaker, Mr. Njai Taf, made a compelling SWOT analysis on the Gambian economy. And looking at the policy scape and also the GIDE Act, the government of the Gambia, through that act, has also rolled out some priority sectors for investment. And we also have very sound policies. The sectors can, to name a few, you can call the ICT, agro-processing agriculture, energy, health, tourism. These are our traditional areas for investment or priority sectors as per the GIDE Act, and they come with some benefits. But having the act is one thing, having the necessary policies is one thing, but then how do you transform those things into implementation? I think we'll have a lot of discussions around that area. To entice the discussion, I remember in 2017, our collaboration with GIPA, Mr. Drame can remember, we worked with UNTAC to do an investment policy review, looking at the what are regulatory bottlenecks in the Gambia, what are the challenges our investors are facing, and how can we attract more investment into the productive sector. And we focus into 3 areas: agro-processing, light manufacturing, and ICT, to drive those areas. And the study revealed that Gambia is one of the highly rated in terms of taxation, both at the LGA and central government level. In fact, our businesses pay almost 16 different types of taxes and rates at the area councils and also at GRA level. In fact, during the study, we are able to realize that at local government levels, they have what we call hawker fee. If you are a manufacturer in Carnifing, and your buyer is in Basse, and you're supposed to transport your goods from Carnifing to Basse, you get into Brikama. Within the Brikama LGA, the Brikama Area Council will ask you to pay a rate, and those goods are on transit. So you can see all those impediments and the bottlenecks. And also, Mr. Njai also made a compelling review about the checkpoints. So all those things are also impediments, though we have very good priority sectors, that when we put them on the table, it can roll out our development aspirations. So I don't want to deliberate more. Probably I will allow others also to talk on the issues affecting the investment sector.
Thank you so much, Mr. Baji. We come to Saho now. Saho, we had Baji alluding to that agriculture, light industry, and ICT key economic activities that government is looking at in terms of supporting the economic growth of the country. Can you tell us what areas are private sector investing? Are those in line with government identified sectors? If from GCI perspective, given that you interact with the private sector, that's the expectation. So what are the main areas of investment from the private sector perspective in the Gambia?
Thank you very much for that question, Swaibo. I think at the very heart of that question lies potential. Because at the end of the day, it's about where is the potential for investment in this country. But even before we talk about potential, there are issues that are of key interest to the private sector as far as investment is concerned. And prominent are 2, cost and ease. I think these are issues that need a lot of focus, particularly from policy, legislation, and regulation. At the level of the private sector, every time we have a conversation with regards to investment and the challenges of investment, it becomes very difficult to not drag government into the argument or into the discussion. Because as a developing country, a lot depends on policy, depends on regulation, and a whole lot depends on legislation as well. So the issue is, what is happening with cost and ease? I'm glad that in the earlier part of the program, Uncle Tuff and others touched on some fundamental issues in terms of skills, in terms of the ports, and other areas that are affecting or hindering investment. But I think there's a broader framework that we need to look at. We need a private sector mindset in government. We need to operate government like a business with conscience, because that is the only way where we should be able to have an atmosphere where policy paves the way for innovation to take charge. Now, look at any economy, particularly developing economies, and see the models they've been able to use, or countries which were once developing economies, the Malaysias, the Singapores, you name it, even Dubai. The investment that we have seen and the growth that we have seen in those countries over the years was not necessarily due to foreign direct investment. It was due to mainly the preparedness and structuring of the local investments so that it attracts foreign direct investment. We are of the belief that one of the biggest scams that have been sold to developing countries is that foreign direct investment is a game changer. It's not. There is no economy where foreign direct investment went in and changed things. It is not a pioneer. It is a catalyst. So what we need to do is, we believe, focus on how we can strengthen the capacity of our local businesses. And this has to be a deliberate policy. Now, you look at the world all over. Look at the billionaires we have in the world. No billionaire was created just by their own means. It's a deliberate attempt by their governments to ensure that these people have potentials and these people succeed and create the requisite jobs. I think I'll stop here for the opening, and then as we go deeper, we will touch on the other issues.
Thank you, Saho, for those insights. And now, you did mention capacities of SMEs, to support the capacities of SMEs. That will take me to Mr. Drame. In your work in terms of bringing private investors and SMEs in the country, what are the key challenges that Jane is encountering in terms of mobilizing private funds for SME investment?
Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, let me just go into the, debate itself. Here, what we need to look at, the first thing, if you want to grow, that is, I'm looking at from the perspective of investing in the Gambia. If you want to grow anything, you need a fertile land, a very good seed. And then once you plant the seed, you water it, then you can have a healthy plant. But when you look at our terrain, do we have the fertile land? If we have the fertile land, do we have the right seed? Is the seed properly propagated, to grow and germinate properly? These are the questions that one must ask. If the answer to those things is no, then investing in the Gambia will become a major challenge. The preparedness, when you look at doing business in this country, every aspect of it, like Babukar just alluded to, is a hurdle that one needs to really, jump on, or probably hit, you go frontal attack or you go to the flanks in order to pass those hurdles. As Uncle Taff said earlier on, in Nigeria, I didn't have any problem, to get my SIC. It was a smooth ride. I didn't even apply in the Gambia because there would be a whole lot of challenges. And that is the fundamental issue or threat for investment in the country. Yes, I've been in GIPA, and I don't want to say anything that would, sound like I'm going against them, but we have a problem with investors investing in the country because the ground is not well prepared. Every step of the way, an investor would have hurdles. You go and you want the NEA would probably be on your way, if not the SIC, if not other municipalities, registrations, a whole lot of them. So, and these are the things that frustrate investors. You want land where you would invest. So that's why I'm saying you need the land to be tilted and level and made very nice for you to germinate a seed. These investors would come here to sow something that will germinate, have nice roots, strong tree, and then it would flower and then fruit. If that is missing, we have a problem, with that. From the perspective of the entrepreneurs, we have a lot of very good entrepreneurs, brilliant ideas, but the policies around this entrepreneurship ecosystem, I wouldn't say, Omar, yes, I agree, we have all these policies, but all the years I've been in GIPA, I've been trying to implement these entrepreneurship policies, investment policies. I've never succeeded for once to even move, let's say, 3 steps. Because the issue always is we don't have the funds. From the entrepreneur's perspective, there is no fund that would help these entrepreneurs. I have a brilliant idea. You are given, let's say, $1,000 or $1,000. You go and research this idea. Come back and say, it's a brilliant idea, I would go into it, and you are given funds to start that business. It is my view that entrepreneurship is not given, its desired role and respect. Any country that definitely is worth its salt must invest in the small businesses. They are the shakers and movers of economies in other countries, and it should be the same in this country. Entrepreneurs should be given, their due place, at least to have, let me say, a ministry of entrepreneurship, like it is in Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, even Senegal, because they recognize that entrepreneurs are the people who bring in innovation. They're the people who can change the dynamics of the economy. So from that perspective, you will see that entrepreneurship, yes, we talk about it, we jump around, we try to do our little bits here and there just to make sure that, we get by. But I think it's imperative for government, to really, like we say, put their hand on and lift, this particular sector. Let me just stop here before, my moderator, stops me, because I can go on and on.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Driver, for that. I will come back with the same question again. The challenges, because when we talk of policies, we talk of programs in place to, not now, that question will come later. But what I want to, the question is going to be, like the challenges GAIN is having in terms of mobilizing private funds for SMEs. I think that's something that we'll come back to again. To my era now, ITC has been in Gambia for a while now. Many of us, when you say ITC, some will think it's YEP. YEP is a program on the ITC. In terms of mobilizing private funds, what support has ITC given to the Gambian economy or to business support organizations in terms of mobilization or availability of funding for businesses, from both a local perspective and then from an international perspective, making reference to how it works in other countries?
Thanks, Faibu. Good morning, everyone. So maybe I'll start by kind of bringing an international perspective here to the work of ITC and how we see the investment landscape and how we can position Gambia, let's say, in the investment landscape in this broader ecosystem. So I think one key challenge that we have identified when discussing with local stakeholders here in the Gambia is the issue of trust and transparency in contracts. So I think from a regulatory point of view, internationally, when you're looking at making an investment, you're looking at returns for this investment. You want to make sure that these contracts are respected and that you're going to have and the risks that you're facing, they're manageable, and that you're comfortable with them. In the Gambia, when we were talking to local investors, what we saw was that investments were done in a very informal way. So deal sourcing was very much dependent on personal relationships, on the feeling of the investor, like how do they think that that entrepreneur, that business is going to grow, but there is no formal process of due diligence in place, right? So I think when you talk about bigger investments, when you talk about investments in infrastructure, et cetera, there is already some structures in place. But when we talk about private investments, this is something that was still very nascent in the industry. And I think this gave rise to the discussions that we had in the business community at the beginning of YEP, of how can we make sure that we establish a channel that is impartial, that will help different businessmen and investors to aggregate resources, and on that basis also share costs of due diligence, deal sourcing, and make sure that this process is done in a more professional way. So I think that was one need that we have identified, and we have worked with the local ecosystem to work on the setup of GAIN, and now 3 years later we are here, so I think it was a good outcome of that. I think the second aspect when we talk about access to finance is that we need to understand that entrepreneurs are at different stages. In the Gambia, we're still very far from the international environment where if you go to a commercial investor, they are looking for, if you talk to an impact investor or a VC, they are looking for ticket sizes that are around 100,000, 200,000, sometimes even 1 million. That's the average. Companies here in the Gambia, they are not there yet. So angel investment, they can help bridge this gap, but we have to even look before that. Entrepreneurs, when they are starting their business, they are looking for some seed capital, and sometimes that needs to be through a grant or through some heavily subsidized support to really get them off the ground. After that, when they are a bit more established, maybe they can access finance that is available in the commercial banks, but usually the rates, especially I think for young entrepreneurs that don't have collateral, that don't have the networks in place, can be very difficult as well. So for that, ITC has partnered with the Social Development Fund to promote small loans for young entrepreneurs with better than market rates. So that would say is a second step in this ladder. And then finally, when they get to that stage of the angels, they are ready to be invested on. That's the theory. I would say that in practice, when they get to the angels, we see that there is very often a mismatch of expectations, let's say, from the both sides. We see that when we talk to entrepreneurs, especially for those entrepreneurs that have failed, and you ask them, why did you fail? They often tell you, oh, I didn't have access to finance. If you ask an entrepreneur that has succeeded, he's never going to tell you, I had access to finance. He's always going to tell you, oh, I had the right business, I had the right skills, the right team, all that comes with it. So I think for the investors, they're looking at it in the same perspective, right? The problem is not access to capital in itself, it's access to valuable businesses that we can work and we can grow. So I think this is something that we need to consider when we talk about the investment landscape in the Gambia, is what businesses are actually ready to be invested on, and how we can make finance work, especially for those that don't have the same head start that many have. So we've talked about women-led businesses, youth-led businesses. How many of those actually get access to commercial products? I think this is also where international partners like ITC can come in to kind of try to foster investment in groups that wouldn't be first priority, so to speak. So we have worked with GAIN to set up this co-investment facility through the She Trades project and the Youth Empowerment project, where we aim to increase investment in companies led by women and led by youth, which otherwise maybe might not be the first priority in the ecosystem. I think I'll stop here.
Thanks, Mayara. Saho, this point will is coming to you. We have a general notion that Gambia is losing its competitiveness to our neighbors, in the sub-region in terms of re-export, you name it. Is that picture correct?
Well, you know that picture is correct. But let's talk about the picture. You know,
you can go in detail
yeah,
as to how that picture is correct.
Great. Let's zoom in the picture. You see, we don't necessarily have a special place in this world. No country does. It's about the value you bring on the table. It's about what you have to offer to the rest of the world. That's what brings the world to your shores. Now, I really want to focus my discussion on the businesses in the country, the entrepreneurs, the small and medium enterprises, those businesses that are employing one person, two people, the entrepreneurs that have set up shop in this very hall. That potential is what I want to focus on. And how does your question affect that potential? If we're living in one of the smallest countries in mainland Africa, we have already been disadvantaged by size, but yet still we continue to thrive. And in this very small piece of land called the Gambia, from Banjul to Ambase, until recently, we don't know what's going to happen again, you will have over 42 checkpoints along the way. A small business that is operating a small shop that is rented in the outskirts of Serekunda and Brikama is faced with over 30 different taxes from government level to the local government level. If you have a port authority that is critical to the cost of living of the average Gambian in terms of the food that they put on the plate at the end of the day, and you have all those inefficiencies at the ports, is a challenge to doing business in the Gambia. Because the thing is, we have these challenges in two main categories. We have the long-term challenges that we will take at least a while to fix, i.e. electricity. But we have other challenges that are easy to fix. It just needs some gentlemen and women to sit in a room and agree. Something like interoperability for e-commerce platforms. Why are we not able to achieve that? So these are the things that really worry some of us. Access to finance. I mean, it is still in the high double digits. I always tell them, look, businesses want finance. But then again, it's not necessarily have to be in the form of a grant or in the form of a giveaway. It can equally be, or at best, in the form of sales. Can we have an environment that allows businesses to be able to have access to markets through digital platforms or other means? A business will organically grow with sales rather than, say, grants or some windfall injection. So we really have to look at that critically. Because the problem now, what we're having is, we will continue to support our businesses. But at some point, you realize that we have spoon-fed our small businesses to a point that they are not even able to compete at the border with customers. That is the fact. And we really need to take a close look at this. Because what we want to do is that we want to invest and support businesses that will add value in country, produce value, and that value will be awarded in the form of people patronizing those businesses. We are competing with Ghana. We are competing with Senegal. We are competing with Nigeria. We are competing with all other countries in the sub-region, not to talk of the rest of the continent. Now, if the whole of West Africa was a country, and then all these countries had shop on one lane, let's be true to ourselves. Would you go and be served at Shop Gambia? So we need to talk about service and service delivery, both at the level of the private sector and government. We need to build a very service-oriented mindset across board. Now, go to any government ministry, department, agency, hospital, service provision, the service is poor. That's the fact. Go to most of our private sector outfits, insurance, banking, the restaurant, the service is poor. Now, how can we attract investment to catalyze the investment that we already have in country? It is not going to happen. We need to step up our game if we really want to be a service-oriented economy that attracts the world to our shores. Now, I will state this point, case in point. We have been in contact with the hotel industry at least, well, I understand, even before independence. 60 years down the line, what have we got to really show for it? Yes, we have some hotels here and there. But if you look at the hospitality industry, it's a service-oriented industry. If at all foreign direct investment were to do anything for us, it would have left our hospitality industry with a really service-driven mindset, which would have spilled over into all the other sectors. But that is not the case. So we have lost in that regard, even though it is one of our highest earners. The case is, we need to really focus on the issue of service. We don't have oil in commercial quantities that we know of. We don't have all the other natural resources that the other countries have to compete in the global scale, but we have the people, and we have the minds of the people. And to take the minds of the people and drive it and shift it to a service-driven mindset is really key for us to attain some of these goals that we need to establish. And to close on this particular point, why is the private sector really important in the Gambia? We need to ask ourselves this very, very important question, especially Omar and my other brothers in government. You see, we're living in a tax-based economy. In 2022 alone, government expects to collect $23 billion, 14 billion of which is coming from the business in form of taxes. I mean, we've seen tax revenue grown by 2-3 times over the past decade. Businesses haven't grown by that rate. And these taxes are being collected from the same businesses. So we really need to look at the tax rate. In fact, it might interest you to know that government is a shareholder in each and every business through taxation. At least 20-something% of your business or of your profits has to go to government. They are a shareholder in your business indirectly through taxation. So we need to look at our taxing regime, because it does not really encourage growth, and it does not really encourage the strengthening of the small businesses. I don't want to talk too much. You know, you get passionate about these things. So over to you.
Thank you, Sao. Baji, before coming to you related to policy, Drame, this one is for you. Sao did mention that we've over-spoon-fed our businesses or SMEs in the country. How can we change that dynamics, given that GIDE is trying to mobilize, one of your key funds is mobilizing private fund or private finances for investment in the private sectors, particularly SMEs in the country?
I'm not sure whether I agree with Saho on that point that SMEs have been over spoon-fed.
I believe it's related to access to finance or project financing.
Yes, but even then, you know, how many SMEs do access these funds? When you look at the SME landscape and you look at how many SMEs there are, and check how many of them access these funds, most of these funds are not funds that really can take a business to, you know, the promised land, let's call it. It's not. When we look at these funds, not that we don't appreciate them, but these are not funds because I want to start a tailoring business, you give me a machine, you know? Or I want to start another business, you give me $50,000. When we look at what kind of money can start a business, or can definitely help a business from A to B, it would be in the region of what, 350,000. I'm not guessing this. You know, it's something that I've lived, you know, breathe and drink. So if I need 300,000 and I'm giving, let's say, 50,000, how much can that really change, you know, the dynamics in my business? So that is why I'm saying, yes, they've been given something to start them. But you see, when you look at from that perspective, what we really need is to make sure that we create champions. In our Empretech program, I remember we created champions. And up to today, 9 champions, or 15 champions, but 9 champions came through. That's where you find the Genjoros and the like, you know, Starling. Adam. And that's what I'm saying. You must have a you must make a deliberate effort to look at people in each group and then create champions. Today in the fintech area, is the hottest area, is the most prolific area that one can look at and say, let me go into that area. But they're all struggling. Somebody must create, or government or whoever, must try to make sure that you give them, the resources that they need to get to that level. So when you tell me they have been overfed, I tend to disagree. But going back to our investment area, you will realize that the reason why GAIN came into existence is to address a need. And specifically, is that very need that small businesses have. They all want to, start, they want to grow, they want to do something with their lives, but they don't have the resources, the funding, and the like. So a group of people come together and say, well, it's a big farm, everybody must do your bit. We have little money lying there, and we want to help. From their hearts, goodness of their hearts, they want to help these businesses to at least get to another level, maybe from A to B. You see? And that is addressing a need. The need is funding for their businesses. And thus, you have these people, they call them angels, not just for want of a good word, but they are true angels. Because to see somebody struggling and you say, let me help that person. So, you see, it comes from somewhere else. A lot of other people have a lot of money, but probably sitting in a bank, accumulating interest or whatever. But these monies could have been used to support the next person, be your brother or your sister's keeper. So that's why I'm just saying that the businesses, I don't know whether I'm advocating for the small businesses in that way, but I think they definitely need and deserve a lot more and concentration. And since I was in GIDE, just to say this point, I've been trying to get an SME fund for the businesses. For all the years I've been there, Omar is here, we've been promised 60 million. We get to the point where they said, okay, it's gone to cabinet, and then they will tell us, oh no, that fund you cannot get. Then we came down to 20 million. Oh, 20 million is approved. And then we'll sit down a year down the line, 2 years, nothing. And it's been like that for the longest period. How can businesses really grow? We cannot just depend on donor funding. That wouldn't help. That is not that much money. No donors will give you money in the region of 300, 400,000. You see? So government, I believe, must try to level that playing field for the businesses so that the seed that we want to grow will grow in a very healthy environment.
Thank you, Mr. Drame. I don't know whether it's by design or by default you are avoiding my question. My question is, in 3 words, please, what are the major challenges for GAIN in terms of mobilizing private funds for SME financing in the country? Because we can say, yes, SME fund to be initiated by government, but I think these are an opportunity for us in the Gambia to see how the private sector can take the lead in mobilizing private funds for financing for businesses. So in 3 words, please.
No, I just want to look at the model. GAIN is not the institution that will probably start mobilizing funds from government or anybody. GAIN they are angels. Angels are people who have some funds and they want to support other businesses. So the model is different.
No, I understand that component. What I mean, it's like a linkage. Bringing the angel investor, somebody with money, because like I have $1 million, instead of keeping at the bank, I'm encouraged to invest in a business. So what are your major challenges in terms of achieving?
The challenges are many. That would be impossible. The challenges are many, but I'll keep it short. The
reason I'm bringing that question, because we have some investors here,
yes,
so that they can know why Jane is not being able to get people, some of them to be linked up with investors. I mean, businesses here with people with the finances.
The challenges are many, but I'll keep it on two grounds. To find the right businesses is one of those issues that we face at GAIN. Right businesses in the sense that the businesses that you can present before angels, they look at this business and say, yes, that business is really worthy of me putting in money. Just like the challenge the banks have, that the businesses, do not have, they don't keep records, they don't do this and that. So similarly, we have similar business. To look at a business that really, is at that level where we can present them before angels. These businesses must be prepared. And to prepare them, this has to be done with ecosystem players so that the business gets to a level where an angel can say, okay, he's ticked all the boxes, I can comfortably put my money in. That's one of the challenges we have in mobilizing deal flows. Okay. The other point is angel investment, comes from the heart. You can try to reach out to so many people, but it will depend on, because it's a phenomenon that is not very familiar. We are not very familiar with this thing in the Gambia. To say, okay, can you put your money in business? In the Gambia, most people, they are risk averse. Like the chairperson said earlier on in her deliberation, they are risk averse. We approach like 10, 15 people, and maybe only one or two, would say, yes, I think it's a noble cause. I want to be an angel to put my money in businesses. All the rest will say, they will just mess my money up, or they will tell you, no, I'll save it in the bank.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I was expecting more, but this is a teaser, it's an appetizer, so that our SMEs around can be aware that we have GAIN in existence, and GAIN's core function is to link the private, individual people with money and those that are in business. But when we talk of money, we say government. When we talk of policy, we say government. Our competitiveness, we're losing because of government. Are we very dependent on government? Is the private sector too much, very, very dependent on government? And what is going wrong?
I will answer your questions in twofold, yes and no. Yes, because government is the major consumer in any economy. And I will tell you, I want to go around Drame and Babukar's interventions with regards to access to finance. To me, access to finance is not the disease, but the symptoms. I always have this argument, because we are the Ministry for Private Sector, and I always have this argument with government, especially Minister of Finance, and that if you want to transform the business landscape of the Gambia, you need two things. One is our public procurement policy. Two is the local content. On public procurement, why are we not inserting clauses that will benefit government entrepreneurs? I'll give you an example. When it comes to travels, government is one of the highest travelers in the Gambia. What is stopping government from having a policy that all government-funded travels, the tickets should be bought from Gambian-owned airline ticket service? Two, we've initiated a program at the ministry whereby all our furniture should be bought from the Association of Government Carpenters. We've initiated the program, and we want it to be rolled out to all ministries. But what is stopping it? Because we are the major consumers. Every year, government spends millions, if not billions, in buying furniture for offices. So if you start those from access to finance does not necessarily mean you have to inject money to people or to businesses. But if you create such avenues, then you incentivize businesses to go and form themselves in groups. And we've just recently worked with ILO. We've done what we call the diagnostic study of the informal sector. Why there are high informality within the Gambian businesses and the employers and their workers. And the outcome is that most of them don't see any incentive to formalize. Because to them, you formalize yourself, you make yourself present so that the tax authority can see you, and they'll come for you. And when I was reading the document, there's one code, one of the a lady entrepreneur says, and I relate to it. I am a single mother. Whatever I have here, I take it for survival and to pay the school fee of my kids. That tells you a big something. We should look at the picture from a broader perspective. How can government transform the business of that micro or meso entrepreneur? What can we do? Because you can't give funds to everybody. But the trust is not there for them to come on board, regularize, formalize themselves, and then apply for the necessary funding, maybe for credit. Banks will tell you it's high risk to deal with our SME ecosystem because they are highly informal. Because banks are not charitable foundations. They want to at least mitigate their risks in terms of lending. So in fact, you go to the credit reference bureau at the central bank. So all those things are causes of the disease, and that is also hindering access to finance in the Gambia. So on a no point of view, government need to also work with the Gambian business. Mr. Sao made a very compelling argument that our SME are overfed. To me, yes, but then are we giving the right food? Because in as much as you are overfed, but you are not taking the right food, as we said, a balanced diet, you may never grow. So, but then what can we also do? Many times, if there are government contracts or procurement notice, you see how our businesses struggle to be the most responsive, because most of them will bid independently. What is stopping our businesses to come together, form a joint venture, then go in for government contracts? Or what is also stopping government making certain clauses in their procurements that whatever tender we are doing, 10% must be from a Gambian-owned business. These are the avenues you can ease access to finance. Mr. Drama talked of the SME fund. True. We've gone a lot of struggle, a lot of hurdles. You'll come up with the necessary cabinet people. It will go to cabinet, we got approval. All of a sudden, they will tell you there's no money. And the most disheartening thing is that most of the time, we, government, or even the private, we rely a lot on donor funds for access to finance. If you want to have a serious discussion on access to finance, government should do the heavy lifting. We should come on board, do the necessary regulatory environment. To me, I'll go back to the same 2 points. Our public procurement policy and local content can ease access to finance to our business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baji. I think we have about 15 minutes, so we will open we will have a question session. If there is any question from the floor pertaining to the topic of discussion. But in the interim, whilst we wait for that, Mayara, what can be done in terms of enticing the private sector to spur financing for our SMEs from a ITC perspective and international experience perspective?
I would say that going back to the points of Saho and Drame, I think we need to have businesses that attract the interest of investors. I look around the room and I see many great ideas, and I'm pretty sure the investors that are here, they're looking around and they are shopping for the next deal. But very often when they start going through the deep dives, they found a very high level of informalization, very high levels of no bookkeeping, no accounting places, no accounting systems in place. I think there is, in general, a work that needs to be done in terms of making companies solid for investors, that they can rely on what they are seeing, that there is a return to be made. And I think that's one side of the coin. On the other side, I think investments that are catalytic to development in general are also to be prioritized. So if you look at the investments that we have made so far, they were not really intended to fulfill the access to finance needs of all entrepreneurs in the Gambia, but much rather to shift the needle a little bit from the private sector to investments that they wouldn't necessarily go for in the first place. So I think that's another area to look at, that we shouldn't really be thinking whether I'm going for finance first and impact second, or impact first and finance second, but rather finding a way to reconcile those two points and look for financial returns while also having a positive impact. And I think I wouldn't even say that this is something that we should do in the Gambia. I think it's something that it's impossible not to do in the Gambia if you're looking to invest here. I think we have a growing private sector, and we are slowly getting there. So I think it's only natural that private money will come into MSMEs, but our role as partners is kind of like try to accelerate this process with a little bit of catalytic capital.
Thank you. Do we have any question? Menge. Can we have a mic to go around? We have, how many, can you raise your hand if you have a question, please? Menge, how many questions can we accommodate? Menge, how many questions can we accommodate? Two. Okay, a lady and a gentleman, or two ladies. Who is asking the question, please?
Should I start?
Yeah, come. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Joy Mwama, and I'm the founder of Mega Key Consultancy, a marketing agency, and by the way, brilliant interventions. My only concern is that when it comes to services or foreign direct investment, as Saho had mentioned, he said that it's not necessarily the major spur for growth, but we've seen countries like Egypt, which is tagged #1 for foreign investment attraction. And that's perhaps due to the fact that they have the prerequisite skill sets, etc. Now, in a country like the Gambia that you mentioned, Saho, that we are constrained with size, etc., and yet we still have numerous potentials, i.e., such as all those who have shown up in this room. How then is it possible that ITC, sitting right on the podium, can identify viable businesses, even if they don't, or they're not part of any of the, what do you call it? Portfolios, or what do you call this, please? Stalls, yeah. But yet still they are very viable. Some of us operate online, and yet we have not received any support from anyone. And Mr. Drame as well was saying that he doesn't agree that some SMEs have been spoon-fed. I think the actual question should be, how many people in this hall who have benefited from some of these projects that are available, and even if they tried, what has been the outcome of it? Because this way, it would be like a guide for us to learn. Thank you.
I guess that's a contribution. Or was there a question embedded?
You can be more specific. Okay, I can be more specific if you want me to. The question would be, in this room right now, how many people from all the projects that some of you have worked on, how many people have actually benefited in this room? And the lady from ITC did mention that part of the constraints, speaking from an international perspective, is that there's a lot of favoritism or all the ZIMs involved. So how is it possible that your institutions can now fish out right talents so that they will not be on the scene, or they won't be out of the scene, or feeling neglected in the whole business ecosystem scene? That's my question.
Okay, thank you. We will take the second question. Then, okay. Can we make it short and precise? Yes, we are allowed only 2 questions, unfortunately. So we take the second question, and then the panel will just do a quick response. Yeah. Yes, Madam Mane.
Good afternoon. I am Fatou Mane. My question goes to Omar from Ministry of Trade. And Guy Genrada Dari. So my question from Minister of Trade, Omar, what is the government doing in helping entrepreneurs access not only finance, but necessary requirements for you to grow as an entrepreneur? Because I believe finance is not the only issue like you mentioned, but other issues involved. Because we know in Gambia, we don't have materials when it comes to packaging, when it comes to packaging your product and designing. So what is the government doing to facilitate access to getting our products to our doorstep easily? Because I remember when you have to buy your products all the way in India or China or Taiwan, it takes you 5 months before you get them to your doorstep. And that a customer cannot wait. What are you guys doing as a government, as a ministry, to facilitate access to materials for entrepreneurs to be able to get the right thing, to do the right businesses at the right time? Daddy, my question to you is, what is required of us as entrepreneurs to be part of GAIN? I mean, not just being part of GAIN, but having what it requires for someone to be investment ready and to be able to compete in the international market. Thank you.
Unfortunately, that's the end of the questions. We allow only 2 questions, so I'll give the floor to the panel to respond. We're already out of time. Menge is signaling me, so. Yes, can you?
Go? Okay. Thank you for that question. If I can recall, your question is how can government support garment entrepreneurs to have access to packaging materials? I wish I have a direct answer to that question, because packaging materials supposed to be actually driven by the private sector. So what can we do? Is for government to come up with the necessary business environment, make it ready for people to see that area as a need. Because then if you see packaging material as a need, then as an entrepreneur, you should have that mindset and go start that business. But is the environment ready for you to set up such a manufacturing plant? I will say yes, no. Because setting up a manufacturing plant in the Gambia is one of the most expensive things and one of the most tiring things, the cost of energy. Uncle Taff mentioned about skill set. Would you have the necessary people to work for you at those setups? It's true. Most of the entrepreneurs here, especially those into packaging, especially into agro-processing, will complain about packaging. So what we do, it's not government works directly with them, but through the projects that are also under the government, because it's partnership, ITC, the UNDP, and other projects, helping with the packagings, train on packaging. Because I remember we have a lot of trainings with the GIDE22 to train their members on how to do the necessary packaging. And also, we've also capacitized the Standards Bureau that also come up with some standards and also helping our entrepreneurs to meet certain conform qualities and also conformity assessment, especially if they want to get ready for export market. But to be quite honest with you, directly, you need, that should be the job of the private sector. There must be an entrepreneur with that mindset who sees that as an opportunity. It's a challenge for you. It's a challenge for most of the people within the value chain for agro-processing. But an entrepreneur out down there should be thinking, this is an opportunity for me. How can I fill the gap? And then you should come to government, this is what we want to do. Or governments will know that this is what's supposed to be done, and we should put the necessary regulatory environment. Sauer talks about the ports, how we are becoming more inefficient. So if you want to set up those things, it may also cost you in importing the necessary plant and material. But then it's supposed to be 2 sides. Governments will pull in something, and the private sector also will pull in something. I hope I answer your question, because to be quite honest with you, that's not directly for government. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. So The question, unfortunately to the question, those asked the question, we will not have the time to answer it because I've been signaled several times by Menge. Just a quick one, in 30 seconds, can we have your final words in relation to doing business in Gambia from regulatory and policy perspective? Just in 30 seconds from each of the panelists. We start with Drame, please.
Myself?
No, Drame. Okay. Drame, 30 seconds, please.
I would just say that I think, the small businesses must be given their due place. They need support, and government has to come in and do this. Probably create a ministry responsible for small business. Maybe that will give them the focus.
Thank you. Saho?
Again, hinging from that, we need to be ambitious with regards to our policy directives. We need to inject policy with so much ambition that it becomes unstoppable. But I will use my final seconds to just touch on the issue of foreign direct investment. You see, we're not going against foreign direct investment. What we're saying is, before it comes, it needs to meet us to be ready, to be able to absorb it, work with it, so that it will not leave us behind. Case in point, something very abstract. In Nigeria, it was oil before democracy. In Ghana, it was democracy before oil. So what happened is that when investors were coming in Nigeria, the country was not ready and didn't really understand how best to make use of oil wealth. So a lot of it went down the drain. In Ghana, it was democracy before oil. Before investors came, they were able to set their governance right, as Uncle Taf said before. So you will see that over the last 10 years, compared to Nigeria's over 70 years, 10 years of oil wealth or oil extraction in Ghana has left more on the ground than 60 years in Nigeria, including the stability. So that's just a mere analogy.
Thank you, sir. You're out of 30 seconds. Baji, your 30 seconds, please.
Thank you. In 30 seconds, we've all had interventions here, and Gambia is a small country. To attract meaningful investment, we need to be efficient. That's the bottom line. Efficiency both from the private sector and also from the public sector. And we're supposed to have honest discussions. The government cannot do it alone, but the government is supposed to drive the private sector to the promised land. So this is a good event, but then I'll come back to my words again. In order to facilitate investment here, in order to make Gambia heaven or the choice for investment, efficiency, because we are a small country with a lot of challenges. So in order to move the Singapores, the Dubais, they are efficient. And that's why they are making it. Thank you.
Thank you. So the efficiency should reach out to regulation and policies also, I believe. Mayara, your last 30 seconds.
Thank you. Maybe I will use my final 30 seconds to partially address also the question that was posed. I think the key here, so that we don't have a few key individuals benefiting, is to have a systemic view of the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And I think that's the key takeaway from me for this session as well, is that we really need to focus on the work that we do with the local institutions, the business support organizations. I see many names around the room that we have worked with, because they are the key institutions that are going to be here long after the projects are gone. And I think working with them to make sure the capacity is built, the entrepreneurs that are coming out of their programs are coming out stronger, I think that's the key contribution that we can have. I think, like I mentioned before, I think the work of ITC is to be catalytic for the ecosystem in general, and I hope that this is the work that we have been doing with the partners and the BSOs around the room, so that more companies can also benefit from the investments.
Thank you all. A round of applause for the panelists. Thank you all once again. Menge, I believe we are done now. And sorry for stealing some of your minutes. Huh?
Thank you very much, Swaibu, and thank you very much to the panelists. Mr. Omar Baji from Motai, Mr. Babu Saho from GCCI, Mr. Drame, Mayara. It was a very insightful discussion, so thank you very much. I think we can start getting ready for the second panel discussion. There's a bit of tweaks in the program agenda. We'll be having the second panel discussion before the pitches from the two startups that are going to be presenting today. So yeah, if you guys could. Thank you very much. Drame, however, if I can grab you real quick.